Okay, this is the last slide, slide 8 in our Reconstruction unit. Fairly short one here, won't take too long to get through. If you'll recall, we had the Compromise of 1877 there at the end of our last slide, which brings an end to Reconstruction. So we're talking about the end of Reconstruction. With the removal of the troops from the South, Reconstruction was over. Okay. Old, pro-slavery, white, plantation-owning Democrat governments took control in the South again. Those governments got the nickname Redeemers. Okay? These are white, democratic state governments in the South. Old pro-slavery whites who are out to redeem the good name of the South, to redeem the good name of their state. Right? What they want to do is get things back to as close to the way as things used to be as they can, legally speaking. So these redeemer governments come in and start undoing a lot of the reforms that the radical Republican Reconstruction governments had put into place. So blacks are going to get screwed over here in the South. Okay. One of the ways that they're going to get screwed over is through a process called sharecropping. Okay? Now, in spite of all of the good work that Republican governments had done, still the thing most blacks knew how to do was farm. Okay? Problem was they didn't have any land of their own. Sharecropping was a system put in by the Redeemer governments, okay, that allowed plantation owners to get as close to slavery as they could. Okay? Sharecroppers, that's the poor black farmers, okay, were allowed to live on the plantation land, and they had to work the land, grow the crops, okay, and in exchange for being allowed to live on the land, they had to give a share of the crops that they grew to the landowner. A very large share. In fact, maybe it's better to say they got to keep a small share of the crops that they grew. Now, once you are the sharecropper, there's no moving up in the system. Okay? Sharecroppers are not going to suddenly get rich and own the land that the plantation owner has. Once you are the sharecropper, you will always be the sharecropper. This is as close to slavery as white plantation owners can get. Okay? Slavery is illegal thanks to the 13th Amendment. This is as close to a system of slavery as they can get. Okay? Redeemer governments are also going to formalize separation of the races with a series of what are called Jim Crow laws. Okay? These are more segregation laws. Think black codes, but on a bigger scale. Okay? The black codes are where things started back with President Johnson. That's one of the first things he does. The Jim Crow laws are going to be sort of the next version of those on a much larger scale. They are meant to formally separate the races. This is where we start to see separate facilities. Okay? Black water fountains and white water fountains, black restrooms, white restrooms, black restaurants, white restaurants, black hotels, white hotels, and so forth. Okay? Now, the Jim Crow laws, they get their name, you see the little character here, they get their name from a character in a popular song of the time. The character's name was Jim Crow, and this is a picture of Jim Crow. And in the song, Jim Crow was a black man. And in the song, when Jim Crow is told to jump, he jumps. When he is told to dance, he dances. He doesn't cause any problems. He keeps his mouth shut. He just simply does what he is told. And that is the view that most whites had of blacks. That you keep your mouth shut and you do what you're told. Okay? Now, Jim Crow laws are eventually challenged in court. In 1896, they will make it all the way to the Supreme Court, in a very famous court case called Plessy v. Ferguson. It's Plessy versus Ferguson, but in Supreme Court cases, you don't write out versus, or you don't even put VS. It's just V. Plessy v. Ferguson. Okay? And the Supreme Court ruled in 1896 that separate but equal facilities were constitutional. They are legal. It is okay to have separate facilities for blacks and whites as long as they are equal. Now, the problem is, as demonstrated here in the political cartoon that you see, the person judging whether or not they are equal is always white. So they're never going to be equal. Here you see the nice fancy water fountain for the white water fountain, and the black water fountain is a pump with a bucket. Okay? But in 1996, the federal government would say separation of the races is legal. And that will be the law of the land until we get to 1954 and another famous Supreme Court case, which we'll get to at that point. But anyway, this brings us to an end of our Reconstruction unit. A copy of this PowerPoint and all PowerPoints for the year will be on the Rockspace page. You can use those. You can print them out. You can open them to help you study. You're going to get a crossword puzzle. In fact, you probably already have a crossword puzzle to help you study for this test. Use these PowerPoints on the Rockspace page to help you complete your crossword puzzle. If you're sure an answer is right, but it just doesn't fit, perhaps you spelled it wrong. Open up this PowerPoint to see. So anyway, good luck completing your crossword and then studying for your test. Don't forget, 10 extra credit points are available to you should you wish to take advantage of those by watching the crash course Reconstruction video, filling out your video worksheet, and uploading it on the Rockspace Reconstruction page. Thanks much. I'll see you in our next unit.